So this is what we have discussed. Gauge RNR was something that we were discussing. So you had to go to Stat, Quality Tools, Gauge RNR crossed. So here we have selected parts, operator, measurement data was response, then we have clicked on options. Upper specification and lower specification was 250. Anuj, are you aware of how we have arrived at 250?
Yes, 125 each, right?
125 each, right? So it's alright, that you are already aware of. Fine. So once we click on OK, we have these beautiful graphs that have come up. I have already told you that the part-to-part variation should be more and gauge RNR variation should be less. So these graphs should be of smaller height when it comes to gauge RNR, and when it comes to part it has to be very big. That was one thing. And another thing was, 1 second, Anuj. All right. So in part-to-part, majorly we need to focus on the yellow chart, the yellow color. If you have all the three colors, then look at the yellow color. Part-to-part, it should be very small in height, and gauge RNR, here the yellow bar should be higher, maybe the tallest. Right? If you do not provide the tolerance which we have provided, for instance, we have provided tolerance of 250. If you do not provide the tolerance, this yellow bar would not appear. If yellow bar does not appear, then we have to focus on the red bar, red color bar. Same thing even with red color bar. For part-to-part, it has to be small. Sorry, it has to be large, and for gauge RNR, it has to be small. That is how you interpret this. So in this case, when I look into components of variation, it's not having a good impact. I mean, part-to-part, the variation is less, gauge RNR variation is more. It is exactly opposite to how it should have been ideally. Then comes R chart by operator. In R chart by operator, all the values should be within the control limits, within UCL and LCL. Whereas when it comes to X bar chart by operator, all the values should be outside the limits. Yeah, it depicts capability to detect different samples. These red control limits, UCL, LCL here, they indicate gauge variation, that is the error. Since most of the variation should come from the parts, we expect the part means to be bigger than these control limits. Yeah, for a good gauge, maximum number of points, here we have 9 points, maximum number of these points should actually fall outside the control limits. Then let us look into response by part. Sample to sample variation is shown here. Sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. For a good gauge, we expect to see consistent values for each part being measured by different operators. So we do expect to see different means for different parts. The means joining the parts should not be horizontal. That means look at this part 1. The small circle here, this is the mean for these part 1. Then we have part 2. We have a mean here. Then we have part 3 and we have a mean here. All these three means should not be in straight line, horizontal line. Here it's okay. I mean, it's not a straight line, it's somewhat a little curved. It looks like a triangle, right? On the top, at least two sides of the triangle. So that's fine. Next, let us look into response by operator. It shows mean of measurements by operators. Each operator measures 3 different parts. Part 1, part 2, part 3. This is operator 1, operator 2, operator 3. So on an average, all the measurements for each operator should be consistent. And for a good gauge, we expect to see a horizontal line joining the means. More or less it is horizontal. So in this case also it's fine. Alright, and the third thing is part operator interaction. In part operator interaction, it shows the different parts measured by different operators. Values should be same for each sample. And for a good gauge, all lines should be on top of each other. So this blue line followed by green line and red line should be on top of each other. But here they are not on top of each other. Right, so this chart actually can help identify if there is an interaction between the part and operator or not. And this chart will identify if there is an operator who is not consistent with others, or if there is a part that is hard to measure. That is what is displayed here. So now let me take you back to actual values. That was looking into the graph and making sense. So now let us look into the chart and make sense. Here is the chart. The first one is two-way ANOVA table with interaction. So we have value called 0.484. So here HO, that is null hypothesis.
Come from two-way ANOVA table with interaction.
Yeah, this is there in Minitab itself.
Okay.
The thing that we have generated, not this. The thing that we have generated has given these.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, these results I have just simply put there.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'm explaining each and everything in detail. This is two-way ANOVA table with interaction. So H0 is there is no interaction between part and operators. That is null hypothesis. Alternative hypothesis says yes, there is interaction between parts and operator. Now, if you see the p-value here, it is 0.484. That means p-value is greater than your alpha value, which we have given. Hence, we accept null hypothesis. And this is a good indication, in fact. This is a good indication. Look at this. HO. Parts have no impact on measurement results. Part have impact on measurement results. Remember, there should be no interaction between parts and operators. Point 1. Point 2. Parts have to have significant impact on measurement results. So here a p-value is clearly greater than 0.05. Hence we accept HO. And this is a good indication. One second, Anuj. Microsoft link. You can add anyone. I can add people from HSBC, Infosys, anyone, and then we can start chatting actually with them. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good part about link. Okay.
Now, what I want to ask you is, why you choose from the two-way ANOVA table with interaction, the first section, why you choose only the value which is 0.484, and why you choose from the second one the both value? Why you are not first three? Yeah, what is it? First two, sorry.
All right. So this table is with interaction. I'm looking into two different tables. This with interaction means I'm focusing mainly on the interaction part only. Here is the interaction part. Part and operator, they both interact with each other. So this table is only for with interaction. Here I'm using without interaction. And in without interaction, I'll be focusing on part and operator. So I want to see how is the part contributing to the gauge RNR, to the measurement results. I want to see how operator is contributing to the measurement results separately. And then if I see whether there is any interaction between part and operator, then I do this two-way ANOVA table with interaction. So because I'm just looking into with interaction, I'm focused only about this third point, part operator. Here already without interaction, I'm looking into these two parts. So with interaction, if I do these two calculations, then they'll give me different results, and these results are irrelevant for me. I cannot do any analysis on this. I can do, but for now I'm not really concerned about these two. I'm concerned only about the interaction effect. Yeah, just stay with me on this. Okay, just stay with me on this. Since it is with interaction, I'm looking to only part operator, right? And here it is without interaction, so I'm looking into individual things. How is part contributing and how are operators contributing? All right. The first thing is this p-value, 0.092. Parts have no impact on measurement results, that is null hypothesis. Parts have an impact on measurement results, this is alternative hypothesis. If the p-value is greater than alpha, 0.05, then we accept null hypothesis. And this is not good indication. We need to have maximum impact from the parts. Here, because of parts, we have no impact on the measurement results, which is wrong. Let us look at the second thing. Operators have no impact and operators have an impact. So p-value is greater than 0.05 in this case, right? It is 0.965, which is greater than 0.05. Hence, we accept null hypothesis, and this is a good indication. Yeah, so always, because of parts, we need to have maximum impact. Parts should impact in a big way on measurement results. However, operators, there should not be any impact because of them on the measurement results. Due to interaction, there should not be any impact. Just remember that whenever there are different parts involved, they should contribute to the majority of the impact on measurement results. Let us move on. Sorry. Yeah. So here are a few more things that we need to be interested in. There are a lot of statistics, but we'll be focusing only on few of those. All right. So look at this value, 205.12 total gauge RNR. This value should be less than 30%. So this gauge is not acceptable. Because why is it not acceptable? Because this value 205.12 is less than or greater than 30%. For a process operating at a high sigma level
of what?
Sorry, Anuj.
205.12 is less than 30% of what?
This is a value, that's it. This is an independent value. This value should be less than 30% if you want to say that yes, the instrument that I'm using, the measurement process that I'm following is accurate, right? If it is not, then you say that my gauge or my instrument that I'm using for measurement is not acceptable. These are just acceptable limits.
No, but this is 205. And sorry, how we are comparing to 30% of what? I'm not getting it little bit.
Okay.
Okay. 205.
So in the morning we have yesterday I think we have quickly looked into these values. Let me show you those values again. Yeah. Remember these values?
Yes.
Yeah. So where do you have 30% here?
Yeah.
So in relation to these values, I'm speaking here. right, in relation to those values.
But
Yeah, Anuj.
but in 30%, how come you say 205 is less than 30%? But 30% of what? That's what I'm trying
Percentage,
to
right?
ask.
This is percentage tolerance. Already these values are in percentage terms. So this is nothing but,
But then this is 205%. You need to divide this, is it? By 100, is it?
this is 205.12%. This is already calculated in
Yeah.
percentage terms. This is percentage.
Yeah.
I got this value percentage, okay? But my standard says, or some kind of statistical analysis which were already done says that value should be less than 30%. For me to accept the,
And this is 205%, is it?
yeah, 205.12%, is it greater than 30% or less than 30%?
It's greater than.
Greater than. Hence, we are saying that the gauge is not acceptable based on the table that I've just shown you.
Understood.
Yeah, all right. If a process is operating at a high sigma level, that means if it is operating at 5 sigma or 6 sigma, we would have this value which will be much less than 10% actually. Yeah, that is one thing. Second thing is percentage study variation. Once again, this is in percentage terms. If the tolerance value is not available, that means if you do not have this value, suppose you do not have this value. Why is this value appearing? Because we have given the tolerance limit of 250, right? 125 plus or minus 125 mm. Remember, Anuj, plus or minus 125 mm in the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
If that was not given, then we look into this value. Only if tolerance percentage is not given, then we look into percentage study variance. This value that I've just highlighted here should actually be less than 30%. Right? So here this value is not less than 30%, it is greater than 30%. So what do you say? My gauge is not acceptable based on the table that I've just shown you. Another thing is number of distinct categories. It's showing us number of distinct categories is equal to 1. This value should be greater than 4. Better if it is greater than 10. This is the number of non-overlapping groups within your process data. Right, so once again you comment that, yeah, since it is 1 is less than 4, this gauge is not acceptable. So we'll understand everything in detail only if you do an exercise now. So now if you want to know more details on how these values are calculated, you can refer to these things. Yeah, you can refer to these formulae. And here are few of the criteria which are once again mentioned. Somewhere star mentioned. Okay. All right. So Anuj, can you do one thing? I'm not sure whether I've shared the details with you or not. Okay. Did I provide you these details?
What is that?
Gauge RNR exercise file.
Hang on. You said shared with me 3 files. Is this one is one of those
Yes,
files? Is it?
yes.
Do you want me to open?
Start it. I stopped it because sharing my screen and all that. So look at this part 2. How many parts are there? Part 1, part 2, 3, 4, 5. This operator A is measuring all the 10 parts. Operator A until here. And he has made few measurements. Let us
go. This is the second example which you said.
Second example, yes. Okay. Then we have operator B, who is also measuring all the parts. Part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we have operator C. Operator C is also measuring all the parts. Part 1, part 2, part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Operator C is also measuring all the parts. Alright. Now tell me, Anuj, where should I go? How do I navigate the options?
Stat.
Stat, okay. Quality tools.
Quality tool.
Then,
Gauge study.
all right.
And gauge RNR study crossed, right?
Okay. So I selected part in part, operator in operator, measurement data in measurement, right? Then as usual, I'm going to click on options, but I do not have any tolerance level that is mentioned for me. So I'm going to simply click on OK and click on OK. I get these things. Now tell me, should the part to part, no, there is no yellow color. Why is there no yellow color? Why is there no yellow colored bar? Because tolerance is not provided.
Yes.
If tolerance is not provided, yellow would not appear. Then if yellow is not there, which bar are you going to view and make conclusions?
Blue, I think, isn't it?
No, red.
Red?
No yellow,
red,
you'll
sorry.
have to look into red. Part to part variation, should it be more or less?
Part to part less.
No, part to part variation should
Sorry,
be more.
part to part more.
More.
Part to part variation should be more, yes.
Yeah. Gauge RNR?
Should be less.
Absolutely correct. So more or less this is more and this is less. That we can conclude from components of variation. So gauge RNR is somewhat acceptable if you look into this. Look at this. Here we have 50%. So this value would be approximately less than 30%. Yeah. It's almost midway of 0 and 50%. So this is less than 30%. If it is less than 30, that means, yeah, gauge RNR is acceptable. Let us look at the second one. R chart by operator. Should the values be within the control limits or outside the control limits for operator?
Should be within the control limits.
Absolutely correct. But there is one point which is falling outside the limits. This is for operator B. See, this is for A. Until here, until this dotted line, this is for operator A. A is here. From this dotted line to this dotted line, it is operator B. Alright, from this dotted line till here, it is operator C. So for which operator the values are falling outside the limits?
B.
B. So operator B is not repeating himself. He is not repeatable. He is not repeating correct measurements. Alright, let us look at this third chart, which is X bar chart by operator 2. Should the values be outside the limits or within the limits?
Outside.
Outside. See, most of the values are outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? Most of the values. And that is a good indication actually. Alright. Here in measurement by part, these values, it should not be in a straight line. It should not at all be in a straight line. If it is in a straight line, then it's not good indication. Since values are not in a straight line, it is a good indication here. Let us go by measurement by operator 2. It has to be on a straight line. Here more or less it is on the straight line. If it is on the straight line, if the means, if I can connect the means using a straight line, then that means it is a good indication for me. Let us look into the last one, operator 2 and part operator interaction. As I've told you in previous example, all these lines should fall on each other, should interact with each other, should be overlapping. Blue and red are almost overlapping if you notice. Blue line and red line, they both are almost interacting. But look at the green line, it's not overlapping. So what do we conclude? We conclude that operator C is not consistent with the others. Yeah, now let us also analyze the same thing, not just diagrammatically, but also theoretically. part to operator value, p-value, is it greater than 0.05? Since it is with interaction, I'm looking into only ANOVA two-way with interaction. Is it greater than 0.05?
Yes.
If it is greater than 0.05, just understand that we accept null hypothesis and it is a good indication for with interaction.
Okay.
Now let us look into without interaction. For part, is this value p-value greater than 0.05 or less than 0.05?
Less than.
Less than. If it is less than, do you accept null hypothesis or reject null hypothesis?
Except?
No. P high, null fly. P low?
Null. Yeah. Then reject the null hypothesis.
Reject the null hypothesis.
Accept the alternate hypothesis.
Absolutely. Yes. So if you are rejecting null hypothesis and accepting alternate hypothesis, then you're telling that these parts have maximum interaction on the measurement results. Next thing is this operator. Right? What is this p-value? Is it greater than 0.05 or less than 0.05?
Less than.
If p is less than, what do you do with null hypothesis?
Reject it and accept the alternating hypothesis.
Yeah. But alternate hypothesis here says operators have an impact on measurement results. That means if Anuj is taking measurements and if Barani is taking measurements, all the measurements are different. So it's dependent on people. That people dependency should not be there whenever you're taking measurements. Hence, this is bad indication for us. Yeah, and next, let me go to this part, gauge RNR. Now look at this value. What did I say? There would be percentage tolerance only if we provide the tolerance. If you do not provide the tolerance, percentage tolerance would not be there. 27.86. Is this value greater than 30% or less than 30%?
Less than.
Less than. If it is less than, you accept the gauge. If it is greater than, you reject the gauge. And number of distinct categories. If it is greater than 4, you accept the gauge. If it is less than 4, you reject the gauge. So in all cases, it is telling that, wow, the gauge is good.
Sorry, I'm here.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so let me take you back. Yeah, so based on these values.
Did you recently do any, sorry, anyway, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, tell me, no problem.
Have you recently done the GoToMeeting with someone and shared the screen? Do you find the same issue? Because I never did any, I never get a chance to share anything with anyone. So, you know, maybe you are the...
Actually, that issue is being explored by Purna. So he's exploring that. We'll let you know on that, Anuj. I think,
okay.
Yeah, that issue should not be there. Anyways, let's see. So Anuj, I would request you to do this gauge RNR and provide me all the details, all your results, if possible today itself, because the concepts are fresh in your mind. Do it today if possible and let me know. And then we have
for the
okay.
Sorry, for the second and third exercise. Yeah,
do it for everything actually. Even for the one we have done, if you do it once again, things will become easy for you.
Okay.
Because it's not as direct as your attribute agreement analysis, so you can do it. All right. Attribute agreement analysis is something that we have already done. So here is the example. During a training program, 3 students are asked to assess 25 samples. All right, and the students rate the sample as either good or bad. Each student rates each sample twice. Okay, the trainer also has rated these samples and these values are taken as a reference standard. The trainer needs to evaluate the performance of the students and has hired you to help analyze the results by your statistical reasoning. So don't worry. Let us do this practically. We have already done it in Greenbelt, but we'll do it once again. Because in this, we are going to get to the depth of our attribute agreement analysis. In Greenbelt, we have done it at a superficial level. Here we're going to get to the depth. So please bear with me while I open. So what did I say? There are 3 students, student 1, student 2 and student 3. Each person does 2 trials. Student 1 does
Just
trial
give me
1.
1 minute, yeah?
Yeah.
Planning, give me 1 minute.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, no problem. Okay, so there is student 1, student 2 and student 3. Student 1 does 2 trials, trial 1 and trial 2. Student 2 does 2 trials, trial 1 and 2. Student 3 also does 2 trials, trial 1 and 2. In each trial, you calculate the values. The student rates the training sample as good if it is 1. If it is 0, the training program, during the training program, whatever sample they check, that is bad. Yeah, so also the trainer himself evaluates. He has also rated these samples. And these values which trainer has given is considered as a reference standard. That means trainer can never go wrong, kind of. Yeah. So this is attribute agreement analysis. So let us go to stat, quality tools. Let us do attribute agreement analysis. In this, do we have values in one column only, Anuj, or do you see multiple columns?
Multiple columns.
Yeah, so let me select multiple columns and click in that. Let me select student 1 till 3, all those trials. How many appraisers are there? How many students are there?
3.
3 students.
2. Sorry.
No, 3
3.
students. Student 1, student 2 and student 3. We have 3 students. How many trials is each student doing? How many trials
2.
is each student doing? 2. Absolutely correct. Do we have a standard also against which we can compare?
Yeah, trainer.
Trainer, absolutely correct. And look at this box. We check this box if the data is ordinal data. Okay. If the data is ordinal, nominal, ordinal and all that I think we have discussed. So if it's ordinal data, we check this box. Otherwise, simply forget it. Click on OK. Look at this. First of all, let us evaluate the diagram. For this appraiser 1, approximately 84% are repeated. So percentage matched when measured by an individual appraiser is 84%. So this student 1, when he takes measurements 2 times, 84% of the time it matches. So let us see how 84% has come. Let me go back to the worksheet. Here is student 1. He takes 2 trials. There are in total how many trials? 24 trials or 25 trials. So in first row 1 and 1, so it's matching. Second 1 and 1, it's matching. It's 0 and 1 for the third one, it is not matching. Then it is 1 and 1 matching. 1 and 0 not matching. 1 and 1 matching. 1 1 matching. 1 0 not matching. So in this way, how many are not matching, Anuj? Can you just tell me for these 2 columns? Student 1, trial 1 and trial 2. Yeah, Anush, how many are not matching?
4.
4 are not matching. So how many are matching if 4 are not matching? Out of 25, 4 are not matching.
21.
21.
21.
So 21 by 24 is 20 multiplied by 100 is 84%. That is exactly what we have got. What happened all of a sudden? Where did this graph go? All right, got it. So yes, yeah, this is 84. Even if I hover the mouse, it will tell that it's 84%. For student 2 or appraiser 2 also, in that way we calculated, it is 88%. For appraiser 3, it is 92%. So this is what it is, and this red line with the crosses on the either side represent the 95% confidence interval of the percentage matched. With 95% confidence, I can say that appraiser 1 or student 1, right, value, that is percentage matched value, can lie anywhere between 63.91% to 95.46%. I can say with 95% confidence. For appraiser 2, I can say with 95% confidence that his percentage matched value will fall between 68.78% to 97.45%. Is this interpretation okay with for you, Anuj?
Little confused.
Yeah, which one are you confused? I'll repeat it.
I'm confused that what is the logic, why we are doing this? That's what I wanted to know, you know.
We want to find out.
In reality, I don't know what kind of example I will get it here.
Okay, simply speaking, first of all, you need to improve something in the project.
Yes.
But why do you do Six Sigma? To improve something.
Improvements.
So what do you want to improve? Just give me any example. What do you want to improve?
Process maybe?
What? Productivity? Do you want to reduce the defects? Or do you want to improve the quality? Or what do you want to do?
Improve the, reduce the defect, I think.
Yeah, you want to reduce the defect. From which value to which value? What is the current defect rate? You need to find out that, right? You need to find out what is my current defect rate. For that, you have to collect the data. Are you going to collect? Are you going to sit night and day and then collect the data, or are you going to have some people working with you?
Operator.
Right?
Operator,
so those operators collect and give you the data. How can you be rest assured that the data provided by that operator is correct?
Need to compare with the trainer.
You need to compare it with the trainer. You need to compare his own readings multiple times. Some people are very clever. Even without taking the readings, they put some readings on a paper and give it to you. Right? So how will you identify such discrepancies? Few people might not do these kind of malpractices, but genuinely they might be doing mistakes. Maybe they do not know how to measure. All these days, maybe they were fooling the management. We don't know, right? Maybe all three people whom you choose measure things in their own way without any standard way of measuring. Hence, there might be a lot of errors, mistakes in the data that they might have captured. Right? So, in order to identify all those things, either you do gauge R&R or you do attribute agreement analysis. When do you do gauge R&R?
Okay, now I'm getting it.
You do gauge R&R if the data is continuous data. For example, processing time, right? Call resolution time in a call center. So if it is time or cost or something like that, it's continuous data. If data is continuous, you do gauge R&R. But if the
Okay.
data is discrete, number of defects, number of parts, right? If the data is discrete, then you go with attribute agreement analysis.
Now I'm getting it. Okay.
Yeah. So that is what we are doing, and
Okay.
we are checking whether operator 1, 2, 3 they are doing or whether they are taking correct measurements or not. Operator 1's value was 84%. That means 84% of the times he is measuring the same readings that he has initially measured. So he has taken measurements twice of the same parts. You're asking him to take measurements twice. Why? Because you want to see whether both of the times he's taking the correct measurements or not. And this exercise is often blindfolded. That means operator 1, when he takes the first readings, he is not expected to record those readings anywhere. Only you record it. And then the next time when you ask him to take measurements, he does not have any reference against which he can check. So he will take new readings once again. You check these two readings and see whether they are matching or not. So for appraiser 1 or student 1, 84% of the times it's matching. For appraiser 2, 88%, and for appraiser 3 it is 92% of the times. Is this clear?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, no. So that is making some inferences based on
Can you
the.
give me just 1 minute?
Yeah,
1 minute, yeah?
yeah, sure. So
Hello?
yeah, Anuj,
I'm back here.
I'm with you. Yeah. So let me go back to this. So look at these values. Appraiser 1, 2, and 3, you got 84%, 88, and 92%, right? So these are the same values which we have seen on the plot. Yeah, and this is 95% confidence interval. That red line was showing this range actually. Okay. Now, you know for a fact that if the values are greater than 90%, you accept the measurement system. If the values are anywhere between 70 to 90%, you cautiously accept. And if it is less than 70%, you reject.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we know that. Right. So, last time during green belt, I've told that we will discuss flake-up statistics in black belt, right? So here is where we are. So we will have to discuss these values as well. So for
Now, one thing. Sorry.
yeah, no problem.
I don't know. Is it something we can continue from tomorrow, or is it something needs to finish now?
Are you in a hurry?
I'm not in a hurry, but I think it's getting enough for me now. But again, I'm not in a hurry. If it's getting 5-10 minutes, that's okay, you know.
Yeah, in 5-10 minutes will be done. At least since we have started this, I would like to complete this and then we will take break.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Because you know what happened before we joined, I was just going through the lecture from yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And then again,
It was becoming too much. No, Anuj, it has to become too much until you know, go to Australia.
that's what I know.
Yeah. It has to be in this way. I mean, day, night, you have to speak only statistics. Tomorrow, even if your wife says, what are you doing? You have to say flake up statistics. All right. So look at this kappa value. Kappa value should always be greater than 0.9 for some good agreement. And at least it has to be greater than 0.7 for acceptable agreement. In this case, appraiser 1 has unacceptable repeatability. So he's not repeating himself. What was his response? 0 if the sample was bad, 1 if the sample was good. For both of these things, the values are 0.675325. Since it is less than
0.9. That's it.
yeah, and it is also less than 0.7. At least if it is greater than 0.7 and less than 0.9, I would have accepted it with some caution. But here it is, since it is less than 0.7, we blindly reject it. So it's unacceptable, his measurements. Look at appraiser 2, 0.75. It is greater than 0.7 but less than 0.9. So it's not an excellent agreement, but okay, I can cautiously accept. Same is the case even with third appraiser because the value is 0.837662. Yeah, and also look at the p-value. Your null and alternate hypothesis, you write it in this way. Let me quickly write that also. In your null hypothesis, you say kappa value is equal to 0. Right? In alternate hypothesis, you say this kappa value is greater than 0. So here in our case, is this p-value less than 0.05?
No, it is great. Sorry, yeah, it is less than
Less than.
0.05.
If p low, what do you do?
Null low, reject.
We reject null hypothesis. So we are rejecting this and we are going with this, which says k value, kappa value is greater than 0, and yes, it is greater than 0 here, 0.67.
Yes.
In that way, you can also look into the p-values and make some inferences out of that. Yeah, the next thing is each appraiser versus standard. Right, this is the same thing as our green belt. So 25 samples is what appraiser A has actually measured. Out of that, 20 of them are matching with the trainer's values, that is standard. So if 20 out of 25 matched, percentage will be 80%. So if it's greater than 70%, then you cautiously accept. Greater than 90%, you blindly accept it. Yeah, so that is what we do. Let me take this down further. Here is all drawings. All right. So now look at the kappa values also, Flay kappa statistics. Right? If the kappa values are greater than 0.7 but less than 0.9, for all of these things, it's the same. They are acceptable, but they are not necessarily a good agreement with external standard. And also all p-values are less than 0.05. So that indicates that all kappa values are significantly different from 0. They are not zeros. Yes, these kappa values are not zeros. If you see 0.77, 0.8, 0.83 and all that, these are not zeros. That is what your p-value is also confirming. And one last thing is between appraisers and all standards. So here also look at the kappa values. They're barely acceptable. That means it's greater than 0.7. So they're just acceptable. And also p-values are less than 0.05, which indicates that the kappa values are different from 0. And the last thing is all appraisers versus standard. I look into all appraisers values that they have measured. I check how many match with the trainer versus standard, so versus trainer. Only 14 of them match with the trainer values. So the percentage is 56%. Pathetic. Even look at the kappa value. Kappa value says it is barely acceptable. And your p-values indicate the kappa values are significantly different from 0. That is what you conclude. Yeah, so we have looked into within appraisers, each appraiser versus standard, between appraisers and all appraisers versus standard. And let me go to this. One second, we are almost done. I've just explained all these things, you can go through that. So if it is greater than 0.9 kappa value, then you accept it. If it's in between 0.7 to 0.9, then you cautiously accept. If it is less than 0.7, you reject it. Yeah, and there is something called as Kendall's coefficient for ordinal data. Remember in, let me show that also to you once. So, was this the data? No. Attribute agreement analysis. Yeah, this is the data. So while doing this, I have told you that if you do attribute agreement analysis, there is this option called categories of the attribute data are ordinal, right? Whether they are ordered or ordinal. If the data are ordered, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, rank 4, that is an order. Okay. So if the values are in that way, if they are ordered, then you look into not Flay-Kappa statistic, but you look into Kendall's coefficient for ordinal data. And look at this, there are two kappa values. Flay-Kappa, you use it in one scenario. Cohen-Kappa, you use it in another scenario. Cohen's kappa you use only when there are two raters. That means if there is student 1 and student 2, appraiser 1 and appraiser 2, only if there are two raters, this works. Cohen's kappa value, right? Otherwise you use Flay-Kappa. I think these are few recommendations that you can do after doing that exercise. Here is another exercise, Anush, attribute RNR. So for today I'm giving you these two exercises, or 2, 3, 4, 5 exercises in total. 3 of them I have solved. In Gauge RNR 2 I have solved. 1 is your exercise homework, but I recommend you to solve all 3. And when it comes to attribute RNR, I have solved 1. Here is another case study. I would request you to solve these 2. And then tomorrow we will continue from where we have left.